Hi everyone, my name is Sydney Elfstrom and my project is titled How to Achieve Transit-Oriented Development in an Equitable and Just Way. So for some background, near highway pollution, of course, is correlated to an array of negative health outcomes from both noise pollution and air pollution, and these health outcomes are exacerbated for sensitive communities, which is often classified as children, elderly people, and people with comorbidities. Transit-oriented development is a super important step in reducing highway pollution, and it also helps to increase affordable housing, but it's going to be a very, very long process, and it's important to ensure that throughout the entire process, environmental justice and health equity are promoted because even solutions and projects with super good intentions, um, harm can still occur. So my research aims to assess if and how the transit-oriented development process might cause harm, mainly in terms of highway pollution, and also to explore ways that this harm can be reduced for the nearby communities that will be impacted. So my two research questions were, should the locations of transit-oriented development in King County be a concern, and what are the best practices for highway-adjacent land use zoning that promote environmental justice and health equity? So over the summer, I interned with Public Health Seattle and King County, and the main project that I was working on was the creation of a policy briefing memo surrounding highway adjacent land use, mainly focusing on it in terms of transit-oriented development. So this involved conducting a literature review and policy scan, looking at transit-oriented development plans and highway adjacent land use and the health impacts of this. And also, I had meetings with a lot of specialists from the fields of environmental science, public health, and planning, such as the Office of Regional Planning and Puget Sound air quality and asthma specialists. And I also, with the help of a King County GIS specialist, helped to conduct a GIS analysis. As for my own research, I created and distributed my own Google survey to houses within 500 feet of I-5 in the University District and Roosevelt neighborhoods of Seattle. So this figure right here is a picture of me doing that. Um, for the first part of my results, I found that highways of concern, which are highways with a volume of over 100,000 cars or more a day in King County. These include I-5, I-90, and State Route 167. I-5 is especially a concern because in most places, it has a volume of over 200,000 cars a day. And I also found that transit-oriented development is highly based around high-capacity transit stops. So these are things like light rail stops or bus rapid transit routes. And I'm sure you know, if you live in King County, that many of these high-capacity transit stops are located near these highways of concern. So I found that future and current transit-oriented development is closely adjacent to highways of concern. And this map right here shows that. I know it's a little hard to digest. But all the little circles kind of show where transit-oriented development is planned based around these high-capacity transit stops. And then the red line shows the freeways with the 500-foot buffer. So you can see how correlated this transit-oriented development will be to highways of concern. So this is a concern. Um, as for solutions, I found that incentive-based zoning is a promising solution for this. So basically, incentive-based zoning is a way to offer a developer some sort of reward, and this shouldn't be money. Money makes it too complicated, but things like height density or waived permit fee in exchange for something that benefits the public. It's often been used for sustainability initiatives or affordable housing. But in this situation, it can be used to protect sensitive communities from the harms of highway pollution without any net loss of development throughout the transit-oriented development process because it wouldn't be a requirement. We wouldn't be saying you can't develop this. We're not forcing anything. It's just a way to offer a reward in hopes to kind of like change the location of where a developer will be placing a building. So this figure right here helps to show how this would work in this situation. So within 500 feet of the highway, developers would receive an incentive if they placed non-sensitive building uses, so things such as storage, offices, light and heavy industry, and warehouse and distribution buildings. And then outside of that buffer, these developers would receive an incentive if they placed buildings that have sensitive users and occupants, such as schools, childcare, clinics, other healthcare, and senior living, in order to help protect these sensitive communities from highway pollution, and help protect children, elderly, and people with comorbidities. Um, as for my survey results, the short answer responses from my survey helped to show what people who currently live within 500 feet of highways actually want to see and what they feel they need, which is super important because community engagement and involvement in all planning policy and decision-making processes is vital to ensure that equity and justice are being met. Because if you don't include them, then you're not going to know what they need and you're gonna overlook a lot of things. So one response that I thought was super important related to community engagement was someone said that they wanted to see more of policymakers making intentional efforts to have the people living in the neighborhood the main focus and voice for decisions made. And that is so, so important. And then there was other responses related to planning and policy, and then there was a good amount of responses related to vegetation, saying that vegetation is not well kept in these areas and that there needs to be more trees and plants to help with air pollution and noise pollution. Um, as for implications, these incentive-based zoning solutions should be implemented into comprehensive plans, future comprehensive plans and land use code in order to help protect these sensitive communities from highway pollution throughout the transit-oriented development process. And with that, funding should be allocated to help implement solutions involving the actual communities living near these highways of concern, because obviously you can't move all houses or things away from highways, especially since affordable housing is normally placed near highways. So it's still important to ensure that this community is having their voices heard and that they're getting what they need to protect themselves from highway pollution. So this could look like a community advisory board or public forums and other community-based research to help promote harm reduction, justice, and equity. I'd like to thank my site supervisor, Richard Gelb, my faculty advisor, Alexandra Montano, my family, friends, and my POE cohort for all of their help and support on this project. And thank you everyone for listening.